Just to let you know, this episode deals with issues surrounding child abuse. Welcome to Filmability. My name's Joel Fisher, and I'm the author of Filmability, A History of Disability in Cinema, which you can find on Amazon and Kindle paperback. Welcome if this is your first time listening, and welcome back if you've listened before. This week's episode I'll be talking about The Accountant, the 2016 action movie about an autistic hitman. The Accountant is directed by Gavin O'Connor, a director best known for Warrior with Tom Hardy and Joel Edgerton, and James Got a Gun with Natalie Portman and again with Joel Edgerton. The Accountant is written by IdoBerg, who previously co-wrote the screenplay for The Judge with Robert Downey Jr. and Robert Duvall, and wrote the screenplay for A Family Man with Gerard Butler and Gretchen Mol. Since The Accountant, Gavin O'Connor has directed Finding the Way Back with Ben Affleck and Al Madrigal, and The Accountant 2, which came out in 2025 with Ben Affleck and Jon Bernthal reprising their roles. Also since The Accountant, IdoBerg has gone on to create Netflix series Ozark, and he wrote the screenplay for the series His and Hers, which also co-starred Jon Bernthal. As usual, if you haven't already watched The Accountant, I suggest you do so now, because I'll be spoiling everything. In the UK, you can find The Accountant on HBO Max, and you can buy and rent it everywhere else on digital or in physical form. So without further ado, let's get on with the film. Okay, so the film opens with a man going through busy traffic. So gunshots are heard and a man enters an abandoned building, and he goes upstairs and finds a dead body, and the man is holding a gun. The gun clicks, and it's indicating that it's about to be fired. Next scene, in Harbour Neuroscience, in Hanover, New Hampshire, 1989, an autistic boy is putting a puzzle together. A man is talking to a couple about their son stimming. Stimming being the activity of which autistic people use to keep themselves calm. So he's seen rocking back and forth, but there are other things that they can do, and I mean particularly fidget spinners were popular on a larger scale, but they are particularly for autistic people to make them feel centred and concentrate on the here and now. The man's talking about all the things that an autistic person would encounter. It's a clinic, and the man is suggesting that their son stay with them over the summer so that he can be helped. The father disagrees, saying that he thinks that his son needs to be overstimulated in order to get over his autism. And although this is a setup of the film, in doing so it's showing the audience the tough love approach from Christian's father. In doing so, though, it completely ignores the damage that this may cause to an autistic child. In the film, Christian is seen as an adult, and a high-functioning autistic adult at that. Although when he was a child, he was non-verbal and prone to seemingly constant meltdowns. In reality, the kind of treatment that his father subjects him to would leave him with lifelong psychological and neurological damage. Research has shown that this kind of treatment could also lead to rewiring the brain to survive and not instill confidence as a child when he grows up to be an adult. Especially considering that, autistic or not, his mind was still developing when he was a child. This is because the part of the brain called the amygdala, the threat detector, would be on high alert. The treatment Christian's dad puts him through can worsen his pre-existing sensory sensitivities and can make everyday environments feel physically painful or dangerous. This ease of survival can hinder the development of the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for reasoning and emotional regulation, something that is largely ignored, as Christian is shown to be intelligent and analytical, suggesting that his autism somehow sheltered him from its abuse. The abuse can also lead to toxic stress, which can affect the architecture of the brain and lead to issues with attention and learning, again something which the film entirely ignores. The boy is playing with the puzzle and goes into meltdown when he can't find a piece that he's dropped on the floor. The girl is there alongside with his brother, who's been watching the whole time, and she picks up the missing piece from the floor and hands it to him. It's then revealed that what he's been doing is he's been doing the puzzle upside down, with the back of the puzzle face up. In the next scene, it's Plainfield, Illinois, 20 miles south of Chicago, and it's present day. A man is sitting at a desk as a couple are talking to him. This is his farmer and his wife, and their names are Frank, and he's played by Ron Prather, and his wife Dolores, played by Susan Savoy. Dolores notices the accountant looking at her necklace. She asks him if he likes it, and he says that he doesn't. He advises them on how to make more money by exaggerating their land and basically overemphasizing what they need. So it's really helping them out financially, and they're very grateful. And the accountant's name is Christian, and he's played by Ben Affleck. A woman called Mary Beth comes to a man's office. He's her boss, and his name is Ray, and he's played by J.K. Simmons. Mary Beth is played by Cynthia Adair Robinson. He sits down and goes through Mary Beth's CV, and he's impressed by it. But he asks her why she hasn't gone for a bigger promotion, and she says that she likes the work there. But he says that he thinks that she's lying, and he brings up her criminal record. Being confronted by this, she stands up to leave, but he stops her, telling her that it's a felony to lie on her CV, and he asks her if she likes puzzles. Back at the office, Frank thanks Christian for his help, and then Christian goes back inside. Back at Ray's office, Ray hands Mary Beth a few photos, asking her what she notices in them. She says that she notices the same man in each, and he says that the man is an accountant, and he's known as to be an assassin. He says he has 6 months to retirement and wants to know who he is. He says that if she doesn't help, then he'll reveal her criminal background. Back at Christian's home, he's making a meal and he sits down alone to eat. He's making sure that the food is symmetrical, which is cinematic shorthand for autism. But this is something that the film gets right in a clumsy kind of way. The need for structure helps the brain to manage sensory input and direct cognitive energy towards daily functioning. This is part of Christian's routine, and this is what keeps him grounded to his life. This is because while a neurotypical brain can subconsciously filter out irrelevant background noise or ignore minor changes, an autistic brain may treat every new stimulus as a surprise. Without a predictable routine, the nervous system remains in a state of fight or flight, as I mentioned earlier, which is physically and mentally exhausting. Order acts as an anchor that tells the brain that it's safe, allowing anxiety levels to drop. Everyday tasks such as getting dressed and making a meal may feel like a part of a routine for a neurotypical person, but for an autistic person, there's a lot that goes into complex executive functioning, such as planning, sequencing, and starting a task. Many autistic people struggle with executive dysfunction, so planning out a routine gives them a map to follow so that the autistic person doesn't have to think about what to do next, because they already know the plan. The way that Christian adjusts the layout of his eggs on his plate is just his way of making the world make sense. Organisation can also lead to improving the way Christian learns and how he perceives the world. If there is no order, then it can all pile up and make the world feel overwhelming. It also may help Christian to feel in control of his life and have a better acceptance of when unpredictable things may happen. And then he starts playing very, very loud music while running a metal bar up his calf. It seems that his father's training when he was a child has led him to consistently overstimulate himself in order to function throughout the day, which is nonsense. Christian's gone from being a non-verbal autistic person from when he was a child to a high-functioning autistic adult. And this brings up many issues that the film ignores. Autistic children are often at risk of PTSD, estimated at 32 to 45% of autistic children, when compared to only 4% of neurotypical children. This can lead to hypervigilance, also known as the fight or flight response, at any given time. It can also lead to dissociation, which makes a person shut down to avoid the oversensory situations that Christian is not only subjected to as a child, but also what he subjects himself to as an adult, and alexithymia, which is when a person mistakes their emotional pain for physical pain or illness. Also, Christian's continuation of his self-harm as an adult is a response to the abuse he received as a child, and not the regulation of his autism as depicted in the film. It's hard enough to make connections as an autistic adult without having abuse piled on top of that. Christian's abuse could also have led him to distance himself from others, because he may see them as a source of pain. The abuse Christian is subjected to could also lead to a regression of his abilities, and not an enhancement as the film suggests. It can also lead to depression, anxiety, and lifelong mental health struggles. In a flashback, it shows Christian having a meltdown, and he's smashing things, and his brother's watching, and he's a bit unsure what to do. But his dad comes in, and he puts his arms around Christian, holding him tightly as he starts to calm down. Dad is played by Robert C. Trevelyan. In the present, Christian's alarm goes off, and he takes a pill, and he swallows it. At the farm, Christian's come along, and he's got a gun, and he's focusing on the target. He's lying down, and he's taking it very professionally. Frank is watching with a pair of binoculars, and he doesn't think that he can hit the target, but Christian does easily, and it impresses the farmer. Christian drives to a storage unit area, and inside one of the storage lockers is a large supply of guns, including some valuable items, like Luke Skywalker's lightsaber and some paintings. In prison, Christian is talking to a man, and he's teaching him about emotions. Christian understands that he's frustrated, and the man congratulates him. The man isn't named in the film, but his name is Francis in the credits, and he's played by Jeffrey Tambor. In his cell, Francis tells Christian that he needs to find one person so that he can trust them entirely, so that he can function in the real world. In the present day, Christian's talking to somebody on his laptop about a man who he needs his help. She asks if he's willing to sell his painting as well. At the workplace, Christian arrives, and they're in a sort of board meeting, and a man is talking to him, and his name is Ed, and he's played by Andy Amberger. There's a woman sitting there as well, and she says that she's impressed by what Christian could do. At another office, Mary Beth is looking through the internet and searching through aliases that she knows that Christian's had. She's also looking through photos, but can't get a clear picture of him. At the lab, the owner of the company and Christian's client comes along. His name is Lamar, and he's played by John Lithgow. He starts talking about the man in there being fitted with a prosthetic limb, and he asks Christian if he knows much about his business, and Christian recites a lot of facts, and Lamar starts to trust him, and he says that he thinks that the business is like his own child. In a car park, a man gets into a car quickly, and he's followed by another man who also sits into the front seat. He starts intimidating him. This man's called Brax, and he's played by John Bernthal. He says that the man is spreading lies about the company, and he wants him to stop. He protests, but Brax keeps hitting him, breaking his nose eventually on the steering wheel, and eventually the man agrees, and Brax leaves. At Lamar's business, Christian comes into the boardroom, and he sees a woman asleep at the table. He wakes her up, and she introduces herself. This is Dana, and she's played by Anna Kendrick. He asks her what she wants, and she tells him about the job and that they have donuts. But he says he doesn't eat them, and she leaves. At a public meeting, Ray is addressing some journalists, and Mary Beth leaves the room. She calls the Department of Homeland Security, and the man on the phone talks about a killing spree which Christian was part of, and he took out a lot of people with headshots. They play about some security footage and an audio playing of a man pleading for his life. Outside, Christian is sitting on some stairs and having lunch. Dana is sitting close, and she starts to talk about how she likes to find patterns and things, and how her dad was an accountant. She also starts talking about her life, saying that she wanted to do art originally, but she got into this line of work because art doesn't pay the bills. She leaves after not getting through to Christian though, and he politely tells her to have a nice day. At the boardroom, Christian's going through the files, and there's a montage of him drawing on a whiteboard and making connections to things. The equations are getting longer, and he's talking to himself. So it's the bit of montage that shows that he's a very clever man. Mary Beth is at home on a laptop as she hears something on an audio file that interests her. She runs it through a program to clear up the audio and hears something specifically on it, and she plays it over and over again. Back at the boardroom, Dana comes in and Christian shows her all the equations that he's been going through. He explains that she was right about the leak, and he says that the money is going to a company that doesn't exist. They're both getting kind of excited about what they found. They're bonding, and then Risa comes in and says that Dana is needed elsewhere. She leaves and asks Christian about what he found, and he recites the number exactly. At Ed's house, Brax is waiting for him in the dark as he comes down and opens the fridge. He says he's going to have to do bad things to Ed unless he does what he wants. Another man is there sitting on a sofa, a large man with a bald head and a beard, and Brax asks Ed to make a decision. At the boardroom, somebody's wiping off Christian's equations as he comes in, and it turns out that Ed has died, and Lamar thinks that it's a suicide. He says Christian's done his job and doesn't want to see him again, as it will remind him of his best friend dying. Dana's there as well, as Christian complains that he's not finished the job yet. Christian goes home and continues to put on the loud music, hitting his leg with a metal bar and getting frustrated. The alarm goes off, but he ignores it, continuing to hurt himself. But then he gets up and he throws his pills across the room, only to find one on the floor and put it into his mouth. So he needs control and order in order to function in his life. He drives out to a remote place and starts making targets, drawing black dots on watermelons. In the flashback, we're shown a man training him and his brother with hand-to-hand combat, and the trainer is just beating them up. They both lie on the floor as their dad tells them to keep going, saying that they need to channel their aggression. Christian gets up and in another language, I'm not sure which language, he says, "It's okay, keep going." At Frank's place, a couple of criminals have broken in and they're holding them hostage. A gunshot goes off and the criminals try to get out of the house, but the gunfire keeps coming. They get into a car as Christian keeps firing. Frank then grabs the gun from the criminal and the car slows down so that Christian can get on. He pulls the criminal out of the car and they fight, and Christian subdues him with a belt and lists a few companies, asking him which one of them he works for. And then the criminal brings out Dana's ID from work, indicating that she is the next target. He then kills the man, and as he has done before, because he still wants to be sociable and friendly despite the fact that he's just killed somebody and his autism doesn't quite understand the social situation, he waves to Frank and Dolores as he leaves. In Christian's car, he's talking to the woman from before and asks for Dana's address and phone number, believing that she may be in trouble. At Dana's place, her phone rings, but she doesn't answer as she stands outside of a building. A man is looking at her through a window in the door. She goes into a building, followed by the man as Christian races up the stairs to try and save her. Another man then bursts into her apartment and holds her down on the kitchen counter, but she grabs the metal hob and she hits him with it, fighting him off. In the corridor, Christian kills the man who was following her, and as the men hear him, he comes in and kills the first man immediately, and then fights the other man and kills him as well. At the airport, Brax is talking on his phone and he says he needs to do something about Christian, so clearly the two unstoppable force and the immovable objects are gonna clash. Back at Christian's trailer, Dana says that she recognises the paintings on the wall. She's overwhelmed by everything, but Christian says that they need to leave. She's still in amazement and points out the Pollock on the wall, wondering if it's an original. At an office, Mary Beth is looking through a list of suspects and trying to identify Christian. A man calls and he says he thinks that Christian is somebody who was exposed to trauma. He says he thinks that the man they're looking for is autistic as well, and says to look for somebody who doesn't make eye contact, which is again another indication of autism, but not always. But you know, they're clearly going for, in the film, they're going for the most cliche things and sticking with them. She realises that all of Christian's aliases are real people and that they're all mathematicians. And in particular, the camera focuses on Lewis Carroll, who was a mathematician but also suspected to be autistic, although back then they didn't really know. So it's highly speculative. At a hotel, Christian and Dana are going upstairs, and she's asking him questions about his life. And then at the office, Mary Beth asks another man about looking for mathematicians. At the hotel room, Dana and Christian sit down, and Christian starts talking about his childhood, saying his dad trained him and that they moved around a lot because his dad was in the army. He explains about his autism, and he says it's difficult for him to socialise, but that he does want to. And this is something that the film actually highlights, which is not only true, but may also ingratiate Christian to the audience. Autistic people do want to socialise, but it's down to a neurological mismatch rather than a lack of desire. This means that the map they use to achieve it often differs from those used by neurotypicals. Because of their focus on detail, the fast-paced, automatic nature of typical social interactions could feel exhausting, and this could lead to miscommunication, hilarious misunderstandings, or otherwise. This means that autistic people often socialise with each other because they understand how the other person works. Also, going to places full of people and other sensory issues such as bright lights and loud noises could lead them to shy away from something like a club or a concert. There are certain hidden social norms that neurotypical people may take for granted, but autistic people often may find things like little white lies difficult to understand and prefer fact-focused communication. This may also unfortunately lead to masking, a term which is used for when autistic people hide their natural traits. It isn't just something they can do either, as it requires conscious effort and can be emotionally exhausting, leading to what is referred to as autistic burnout. Although Christian is seen as a lone figure, a hero travelling from place to place to bring justice to the world, as shown in the film, he is lonely and, like everybody, requires social interaction. His sense of justice could be because of his high empathy, a trait often found in autistic people who feel other people's emotions so intensely that it can be overwhelming. Autistic people often struggle with small talk as well and don't connect with casual acquaintances, but they can still form deep, authentic relationships based on shared interests and total honesty. Again, that is something that is shown in the film as him and Dana bond over maths and talk about their lives. Autistic people can also feel loneliness more intensely than other people, as they may have people around them, but they may not feel truly understood or seen for who they are. And honestly, I think that goes for a lot of disabled people. Dana talks about her own childhood and a maths club, but Christian doesn't really understand what that was, so she explains it to him, and they bond over maths. Referring to a painting about dogs playing poker, she also talks about gambling herself, and that she tried gambling cards, but she ended up losing everything. And then Christian starts talking, but then he realises that there's something about electronic stores that could be related to what they're looking for, and it could be related to their investigation. In his car, Christian's talking on the phone to the woman, and she asks him why he's risking his life for a woman he's only met a week before. He shrugs. Christian is walking along the street in the next scene, and Brack sees him. He starts to load his gun and fires at him, missing as it hits a car and the alarm goes off. Inside a house, Christian finds Rita dead in a chair. There's a photo of her and Lamar at an event, so it seems that Brax has killed Rita as well. Back at the office, a man is searching for Christian and comes across the company that he works for. He even finds a photo of Christian's office, and Mary Beth asks for the address. She then goes into Ray's office and says that she's found Christian, and he tells her to go there. I think personally that's an unnecessary scene, because she could have taken the initiative herself or tried to set something up, but at least she's probably going through the proper channels and letting him know. In a flashback, Christian's father is talking to him in a car, and he responds in French. A gang of thugs come along, and his father tells him and his brother that they need to decide what to do with them. Christian gets out of the car and starts beating them up, shortly followed by his brother. In the present, Christian leaves Dana a note as she sleeps, and he leaves the hotel. At Christian's home, FBI officers are going through his things, and they find some ammo and a security camera, which is beyond what somebody ordinarily would have. In the garage, they also find an enormous gun. Outside, Brax is talking to some men who are snipers that are hiding in the grass. Lamar is talking about being hunted down by Christian, calling him a freak, and knowing he wasn't going to let this go. At Christian's house, Mary Beth is talking about her childhood. Ray says he sympathises, but she says that she just doesn't care. And then we get a huge exposition dump about what Ray's motives are, and I will try to get through this, but it really slows down the movie. In a flashback, we see Ray in a shootout. In the voiceover, he talks about meeting Christian and being the only one left alive. He pleads for his life, telling him about his kids and how he's a good father. So that would be something that would relate to Christian, because I'm pretty sure he's been traumatised by the abuse that his father put him and his brother through. And then Ray talks about meeting Francis, the man that Christian made friends with in prison, and says that he was a federal informer. But he got out of prison and he lost all his protection and he was tortured to death. He says he spent his career trying to bring down Christian because he felt guilty about being the only person left alive. And he got a call about Christian from an unknown woman, and it eventually led him somewhere, but it didn't quite get to where he wanted to go. And all he knew was that Christian was a soldier, and he knew the informant and killed the people who tortured him. And then he says he was arrested, but his dad died at the scene as well. And then Ray tells Mary Beth that she needs to be there for when they get that call again. And lo and behold, the phone rings, and Mary Beth answers, and the woman says that Ray needs to get his feet off the furniture, as he's been doing. And she tells Mary Beth the name of the company that they should be looking for. So it seems that Christian has eyes everywhere. At the Mars house, Brax is asking about Christian. Then something happens which indicates that somebody has been killed. Christian's outside in the grass and is killed by the snipers. He picks up the rifle and aims it through the window, and then he starts to shoot, shattering many panes of glass. Brax then tells his team to leave by the back entrance, and one of them activates a smoke grenade and they come out firing. Christian then kills one of them as Brax and Lamar are watching on a laptop. Lamar is panicking and Christian is just killing more people, getting closer all the time. He then gets into hand-to-hand combat with one of them and eventually takes them out as Brax is watching on the laptop. It seems that Brax maybe had finally realised that Christian is his brother. And I mean, this is the point where the audience are going to go, oh, the twist. But I saw this in the cinema and I figured it out a lot earlier. So it's just like, finally, yes, of course he is. I mean, I don't know if this was an effective twist because it constantly showed him and his brother and never showed him in the future. So, of course it was going to be him. Braxton goes out to tell the man to stand down, and him and Christian face each other. Christian tells Brax that he needs to finish and that he should go, but Brax argues and they get into a physical fight. They eventually stop though, and Lamar is watching the whole thing on a laptop. Brax apologises to Christian and he asks if he wondered where he was, and Christian said he always knew where he was. And then Lamar gets up in the other room and he goes to see them because he's angry. He feels like he's being betrayed at the moment. Comes in and he talks about the company and about how much good he's done. And Christian said that he didn't want his mistakes to be public, so he hired somebody to kill them and get rid of them. But Lamar argues that he makes people whole, and Christian kills him. And in a beat, Brax says that he missed his brother, prompting him to say it back to him, but Christian's a bit reluctant. He says they'll meet again in a week, and as he leaves, Brax asks him how he'll find him, and Christian says he'll find his brother. At a press conference, Mary Beth is introduced to answer questions about Christian and the other deaths that have been happening recently. She says it was a team effort and the journalists all asked questions at once. Back at the clinic in the present day, some parents are talking to the man from the clinic in one of the opening scenes. He says their son is not less, just different, and says that if the world starts to set standards for what people are supposed to be, then we may never get anywhere. He says that maybe we've just not really understood autistic people and that we should try to learn to listen. In a room, a boy sees an autistic woman there and his parents come in, and the man in charge suggests that he stays with her for a while. He tells them that she's non-verbal, but she communicates with an electronic device, and that she's his daughter. And as the boy watches her at a laptop, the camera pans to a picture of Christian as a boy, and presumably a young girl that he was friends with who gave him the puzzle piece, who is the woman who is in the room right there. Putting it together, she's the woman that he's been communicating with, and she's his liaison so that he can get things done. Then we cut to Dana. She goes to the storage unit, but she doesn't find anything. At her home, she gets delivery and she signs for it, opening it to find that it's a painting of the dogs playing poker, as they were talking about before. She then peels back the canvas and finds that underneath. She then peels back the canvas and finds that it's the original Pollock that she found in Christian's trailer. Then it cuts to Christian driving away with his trailer attached to his car. Okay, so that's the movie. Up next, I'll be talking about a more condensed version of what I think about the film and what I think it means for a non-disabled audience. The Accountant is a somewhat formulaic action film whose premise seems to have been reverse engineered. The idea of an autistic hitman may seem intriguing on paper, but the lengths that the script goes to so that it can fully realise this in a semi-realistic setting does take some leaps of faith. Starting out, the film does portray Christian as something of a cliché, an autistic savant that sees the world differently, and instead of nurturing his talents, his father wants to beat his autism out of him. Thankfully, this is something that is brought up as abusive behaviour, but not quite to the extent that perhaps it should. This kind of abuse is from the thinking of, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, another phrase which is dismissive of abuse in general. With a misunderstanding of autism in the real world, the audience may still take Christian's transition from non-verbal autistic boy to high-functioning adult with a pinch of salt, let alone his line of work which requires him to get into dangerous situations with handguns and hand-to-hand combat. However, there may be some people who have no experience with autism at all, who may find that Christian's course in his life as being somewhat plausible, particularly as the film skims over any real-world issues that Christian may have had to deal with due to his traumatic childhood. The first thing I can tell you is that the screenplay for The Accountant was featured in the 2011 Blacklist, a list of the most liked unmade scripts of the year. The movie was originally envisioned with Mel Gibson starring, with Joel and Ethan Coen directing. There are also reports that Mel Gibson was being considered to direct, with Will Smith starring. What could have been, hey Hollywood? Ben Affleck stated that this is one of his top 5 personal favourite performances. This list includes Batman in the DC Extended Universe, Holden McNeil in Chasing Amy, Tony Mendez in Argo, and Chucky from Good Will Hunting. While for dramatic effect, the script calls out the repeated use of the number 3 as an indicator of fraudulent numbers. The theory behind fraudulent number detection is known as Benford's Law. The law states that in numbers such as an accountant transaction, the probability of a number occurring naturally drops as one moves from smaller numbers to the larger numbers following a logarithmic scale. The law has been successfully used to detect fraudulent accounting transactions. In keeping with the number 3 theme seen throughout the movie, Christian Wolff uses the Mozambique drill, 2 in the chest, 1 in the head, on several occasions. The drill is also called the body armour drill, because many criminals now wear body armour, and the shot to the head is if the 2 body shots do not have any effect. Dana and Christian discuss the use of the number 3 as a second digit in the falsified records. When Christian eats breakfast, he makes 3 pancakes, 3 strips of bacon, and 3 fried eggs. When he does target practice, he shoots 3 melons. The fictional Harper Institute is located in Hanover, New Hampshire, the real-life location of Dartmouth College's Centre for Cognitive Neuroscience, one of the leading institutes for the study of the brain and neural activity. Inside Christian's trailer closet door is a black and white collection of 6 smiley-face pictures with different emotions shown. It's the same picture that is hanging in the Harper Neuroscience Institute when his parents are talking to the neurologist. 3 of them are the faces he draws on the melons that he uses for target practice. The 4 baseball cards in Christian's trailer include the famous T206 Honus Wagner, a 1911 T205 Ryan Holbitzel, a 1915 Crackerjack Christy Mathewson, and a 1921 E121 American Caramel Babe Ruth holding a carrot pigeon. The paintings featured on the film are Woman with a Parasol and Child by Pierre-Auguste Renoir from 1874, A Friend in Need, which is the famous Dogs Playing Poker painting by Cassius Coolidge in 1903, and Freeform by Jackson Pollock from 1946. Also in Christian's trailer, there are several Action Comics #1, the first appearance of Superman. There's also presumably more than one All-American Comics #16, the first appearance of Green Lantern. In front are several rare and valuable baseball cards. The orange card on the left is a 1910 Honus Wagner tobacco card, which is one of the rarest and most valuable baseball cards ever produced. The print run for this card is estimated to be only 50 to 100 cards ever made. All these collectibles are extremely valuable. On a related note, Ben Affleck played George Reeves, who played Superman in Hollywoodland from 2006. And later he fought Superman as Batman in Batman vs Superman Dawn of Justice from 2016, and also fought alongside Superman in Justice League from 2017. The Luke Skywalker lightsaber seen in Christian Wolf's trailer is actually an unofficial replica of the Graflex flash lightsaber produced by Parks Sabers. It's set up in the approximate configuration of the Ranch Saber, which is the only known screen-used example of Luke Skywalker's lightsaber to have survived the filming of Star Wars Episode 4, The Empire Strikes Back. It's held in the archive of Skywalker Ranch. The stand used to hold the saber is from an officially licensed Master Replicas display lightsaber. So, this sort of implies that George Lucas was maybe a client, which is hilarious. Anna Kendrick based her character on her mother, a real accountant who went over the script and explained all the maths to her daughter. In the hotel room, Dana also reveals that in order to get the money to buy a Vera Wang gown, she taught herself how to play blackjack and to count cards to determine the chances to win a hand. In real life, Ben Affleck is known to be such a cunning poker and blackjack player that he's been banned from several casinos, not because he cheats, but because of his well-known habit of card counting, legal but against casino rules. ZZZ Accounting is a reference to ZZZ Carpet Cleaning, a firm founded by Barry Minko and taken public in the 1980s, which later collapsed due to fraudulent accounting. ZZZ Best Fraud happened around the same time as Crazy Eddie's fraud, another 1980s accounting fraud mentioned in the film. Unfortunately though, Crazy Eddie Antar tragically died on September 10th, 2016, exactly 1 month before the film's Hollywood premiere. Although the film is shot on location in Atlanta, Georgia, it's set in Plainfield, Illinois, with scenes in downtown Chicago, Illinois. Also, the high school Dana mentions, which is Naperville North, is an actual high school, from which Bob Odenkirk graduated. The school's bass team has also won 16 state championships. At about an hour into the film, Mary Beth is trawling through the FBI mugshot database in an attempt to establish the identity of the accountant, looking at suspected Gambino family associates. The mugshots appeared to be real photos of the FBI most wanted, and the male identified as David Akai is actually Daniel Andreas San Diego, a suspected terrorist and animal rights activist on the FBI most wanted terrorist list. For almost 2 decades, the real San Diego was wanted for his alleged involvement in 2 office building bombings in San Francisco in 2003. San Diego was arrested in Manning between Conway and Betws in Wales, with officers from the UK's National Crime Agency and North Wales Police acting on a request from the FBI. In November 2024, at the time of his arrest, he was the longest running animal rights fugitive in the history of the movement. The jigsaw puzzle, which features prominently in the film and on the advertising, is an obvious reference to the autism symbol of puzzle pieces used for years. Coincidentally, this symbol was falling out of favour with neurodivergence and autism activists around the time of the film's release. Although not because of the film, its intended meaning that people on the spectrum have diverse experiences was often misunderstood by people who thought it was trivialising autism as a puzzle to be solved. The scene where Dana says the University of Chicago, where fun goes to die, has been deleted from some TV versions of the movie, and that's because it's an unofficial motto of the university, so I imagine they wouldn't want this in an international film. The film cast includes 2 Oscar winners, Ben Affleck and J.K. Simmons, and 2 Oscar nominees, Anna Kendrick and John Lithgow. And this is the second time that Ben Affleck has played the accountant. The first one was in The Sum of All Fears as Jack Ryan, an accountant turned CIA analyst. That's it for this week. Next week I'll be talking about A Beautiful Mind, the Oscar-winning biopic about John Nash, a mathematician who created game theory and was also diagnosed with schizophrenia. If you'd like to contact me, you can do so via Bluesky at bluesky.com/film-ability. You can also email me at film-ability@outlook.com. And if you'd like to make a contribution to the things that I do here, you can find me at Patreon at patreon.com/film-ability. You can also find my book at Amazon on Kindle and paperback called Filmability, A History of Disability in Cinema. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.